A very good day to you all, and welcome to Cricket South Africa's Introduction to Umpiring course, lecture number 2 out of 3. On display is the meeting protocols for today and all other lectures. I'm sure you are now well versed, and we shall move straight to this afternoon's content for the lecture. You'll remember that because of the numbers involved in the Cricket South Africa Introduction to Umpiring course, we have split you all up into 3 classes: the Tuesday class, the Wednesday class, and the Thursday class. You, of course, are the Wednesday class, and today is lecture number 2. The format of today's lecture will be laws 16 through to 20. Then we shall take a 15-minute break. Then Abdullah will take you through laws 21 through to laws 26. If you have any questions while we present, please type in your questions into the chat box, and we will answer those for you after the presentation. After tomorrow's lecture, I will be sending out a recording of the best lecture of the week. So lecture 2 is being repeated yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And in terms of interaction with the candidates, we always record and upload the best lecture for the week on our YouTube channel. So after tomorrow's lecture, I will be uploading the best lecture on our YouTube channel, and I will be sending you the links of that YouTube channel as well as any more relevant information for the course. The exam window period for the Cricket South Africa Introduction to Umpiring course is scheduled for Friday the 19th of September to Monday the 29th of September. You will have those 10 days in which to attempt the exam up to 5 times to achieve the pass mark of 80%. It is a 35 question true or false exam, so you don't have to memorize the content that we are presenting. You merely need a good understanding of what it is that we are presenting for you to be able to pass the exam with the true or false questions. So let's move on to today's laws, starting with Law 16, the result of a cricket match. Last week, we learned that a match can be a 2 innings per side match, or it can be a 1 innings per side match. So let's first look at the definition of a win in a 2 innings per side match. Law tells us that the side which has scored a total of runs in excess of that scored in the 2 completed innings of the opposing side shall win. So what's important here is that the team that loses the match must have had their 2 innings completed. Last week, we learned what a completed innings is. Just a reminder, a team needs to be all out for a innings to be completed. That means all 10 wickets have been taken, or a captain can declare an innings closed, or a captain can forfeit an innings. That would also be a completed innings. Where you have a limited number of overs in an innings or a restricted amount of time in an innings, once you've reached the minimum or maximum amount of overs or the allowed time for the innings, then that would also be a completed innings. So very important when you have a test match scenario, for a side to win a test match, they need to have the opposition's 2 innings completed. What about a win in a 1 innings per side match? Pretty straightforward. The side which has scored in its 1 innings a total of runs in excess of that scored by the opposing side in its 1 completed innings shall win the match. So let's look at a one-day international as an example. Last week, South Africa scored 330 runs in a one-day international against England in their allotted 50 overs. So that innings was complete. And in reply, England scored 325 runs for the loss of 9 wickets. That was also considered a completed innings because they batted for their entire 50 overs. So South Africa won that match by 5 runs because they scored 5 runs more than England. Let's look at the definitions of a tie and a draw, starting with a tie first. The results of a match shall be a tie when all innings have been completed and the scores are equal. I'll give you an example using a test match. If South Africa score 225 in their first innings, all out, and in their second innings, they scored 275 all out, that is a total of 500 runs. If England, in reply, score 200 in their first innings, and they score 300 in their first innings all out, that is also a total of 500 runs. So that test match with all 4 innings completed would be a tie. What about a draw? Well, if we don't have a win for either side, and if we don't have a tie, then we have a draw. Let me give you an example of a draw. So we'll use a test match once again. South Africa scored 225 in their first innings and 275 in their second innings. So in total, they scored 500 runs. England scored 200 runs all out in their first innings. And in their second innings, to beat South Africa, they would need to score 301 runs to get 1 more run than South Africa's 500. But because the match was evenly fought and there was not enough time, England at the end of day 5 ended up on 280 runs for the loss of 6 wickets. So that is not a completed innings because only 6 wickets were down. We merely ran out of time and overs in our test match. So because all 4 innings were not completed, that result of that match would be a draw. Can umpires award a match? Yes, they can. Law tells us that a match shall be lost by a side which either concedes defeat or, in the opinion of the umpires, refuses to play. If so, the umpires shall award the match to the non-defaulting side. Let's watch a video which summarizes the first and only match in the history of cricket where there was a refusal to play by one team, and the umpires awarded the match to the other team.
Over the last 140 years, more than 2,300 test matches have been played. Over 1,500 of these have ended in a result. Over 700 have been drawn, 2 have been tied, and only 1 has ended in a forfeit.
The thing I remember about the forfeit test is none of us had a clue what was going on, really.
According to law 16.3.2, a match shall be lost by a side which, in the opinion of the umpires, refuses to play. On August 20, 2006, this rule was invoked for the first time on an afternoon that swung wildly between high drama and farce. An hour before tea on the 4th day, at the end of the 56th over of England's second innings, umpires Darrell Hare and Billy Doctrove asked for a change of ball.
It was one of the reserve umpires came out with a new box of balls. It was clear they were changing the ball. No big deal there. But instead of asking the bowling side to choose the new one, he asked the batting side, and you think, oh, hello, interesting.
The umpires then awarded England 5 penalty runs, confirming that they had pulled Pakistan up for tampering with the ball. The trouble was, there was no evidence. No jelly, no dirt, no sandpaper.
A lot of people that looked at that ball have different opinions. Some feel it was clearly tampered with, and some think it was more than just playable. It was a good-looking ball. Others think you can see some evidence of scratching, but none that suggests it's been done on purpose and by hand, or even by a foreign object. So very mixed views.
It was after the tea break, taken more than 15 overs, after the 5-run penalty, that things really escalated. The umpires walked out, the English batsmen walked out, the Pakistanis didn't.
They felt hugely wronged, you know, they weren't sure that whether they wanted to come out.
After waiting for 20 minutes, the umpires walked to the Pakistan dressing room, came back a few minutes later, and took the bails off.
And the match is aborted, or abandoned, or cancelled, or no, wrong, none of that. We hear the match has been awarded to England. Wow.
That wasn't the end of it either. After a protest lasting almost an hour, and following discussions with match referee Mike Proctor, Inzamam Al-Haq finally leads the Pakistan team out again. This time, though, the umpires stay put. They've made their decision, and they're sticking by it.
My view of that was that it was very inflexible. Mike Proctor was the match referee in a very difficult position. I think there should have been an instruction from on high, from the chief executive or chairman of ICC, that this is a unique situation because of the unproven circumstances. In a proven circumstance of a tampered ball and a side refusing to come out, fair enough, but this was unproven.
Several hours after the was taken, ICC and the English and Pakistan cricket boards confirm in a joint statement that the match had indeed been forfeited. The hits kept on coming. With no evidence to back up the accusation, the ICC dropped the ball tampering charges. But Inzamam was banned for 4 one-dayers for refusing to lead his team out. They also removed Hare from international duty, who in turn threatened to sue the ICC and the PCB for racial discrimination. 2 years later, the ICC overturned the result from a Pakistan loss to a draw. But the MCC refused to recognize this.
It was all incredibly nasty and another stain on the game. And there's never been any concrete proof that Pakistan were in the wrong anyway.
To date, this remains the only scorecard in history to state England awarded the match, opposition refused to play. In the end, though, there was only one real loser: cricket itself.
Two lessons that can be learned from that match. If us as umpires are going to punish a side for tampering with the ball or changing the condition of the ball, then we should have concrete evidence to support our claim. And secondly, us as umpires should always do everything in our power to convince a team to play the game of cricket and not refuse to play. If they do have a dispute, they should play under dispute rather than refusing to play. So let us encourage always the teams to complete a match, whether they do so under protest or not. It is clearly not good for the game if any of the two teams has to withdraw from the match or chooses to refuse to play. Let's look at the statement of results. How do we mention who has won a game of cricket? Law tells us that if the side batting last wins the match without losing all of its wickets, the result shall be stated as a win by the number of wickets still to fall. So below is an example of a ICC Champions Trophy match played between Bangladesh and New Zealand. Bangladesh batted first, and in their allotted 50 overs, they scored 236 runs for 9 wickets. And New Zealand scored in 46.1 overs, 240 runs for 5 wickets. Now, I'm sure you all know the number of wickets that would end in a team being all out is 10. So when we a team has won by, we take 10 minus the number of wickets that have fallen by the time that the team batting second reached the target. And in this scenario, it's 10 minus 5, which means New Zealand won the match by 5 wickets. And an extra piece of information that the scorers do often supply is how many balls were remaining when the target was reached. In this scenario, 23 balls were remaining. If the side fielding last wins the match, the result shall be stated as a win by the number of runs. Another example from the ICC Champions Trophy, South Africa batted first and scored 315 runs for 6 wickets in their allotted 50 overs. And Afghanistan in reply were bowled out after 43.3 overs for a total of 208 runs. How do we calculate the margin of victory by runs? We take the total achieved by the team who batted first, which is 315, subtracted from the total of the team who batted second, which was 208, and the difference of 107 is the margin of victory. South Africa won by 107 runs. For you are all used to these statements of results. If the match is decided by one side conceding defeat or refusing to play, the result shall be stated as match conceded or match awarded, whichever the case might be. Now, what if there are mistakes in scoring and we only realize them after we think that the match has ended? Law tells us that if after the players and the umpires have left the field in the belief that the match has been concluded, and then the umpires discover that a mistake in scoring has occurred, which affects the result, then they shall adopt the following procedure. If when the players leave the field, the side batting last has not completed its innings and the number of overs to be bowled in the last hour or in that innings has not been completed, or the agreed time for close of play or for the end of the innings has not been reached, it means we still have time and overs to correctly complete the match. Unless one side concedes defeat, the umpires shall order play to resume. So we need to go back onto the field of play, carry on from where we left off until a correct result is eventually reached. Unless a result is reached sooner, play will then continue, if conditions permit, until the prescribed number of overs have been completed and either time for close of play has been reached or the allotted time for the innings has expired. And quite importantly, no account shall be taken of the time between going off and the resumption of play. So when we went off the field of play thinking that the match was complete, if we had 30 minutes still to play and all our investigations took us 10 minutes to figure out that we still need more runs to win, when we go back onto the field to resume play, law tells us here that we shall still have 30 minutes left in the match to conclude it. Next law that we shall be going through is Law 17, the over. How many legal deliveries make up an over? I'm sure you all know. The ball shall be bowled from each end alternately in overs of 6 legal deliveries. So 6 balls make up an over. When does an over start? Law tells us that an over shall start when the bowler starts his or her run-up. That's the first step of the first delivery. Or if he or she has no run-up, then when his or her bowling action for the first delivery of that over starts. And when does the bowling action start? It starts when the bowler's back foot in the bowling stride lands. What happens if umpires miscount the number of valid balls? So we know that 6 legal deliveries make up an over. Law tells us that the over, even if it's incorrectly counted, as counted by the umpires shall stand. That means if the umpires allow 7 deliveries to be bowled, then the 7th delivery will stand, the runs will count, any wicket that falls will count, and unfortunately you will just have to take the blame for allowing a 7th ball in the over to be delivered. If having miscounted, the umpires allow an over to continue after 6 valid balls have been bowled, the umpires may subsequently call over as the ball becomes dead after any delivery after the 6 valid balls have been bowled, even if that delivery is not a valid ball. So let me give you an example to illustrate what the law is trying to tell us here. So we've bowled 6 legal deliveries, but we have miscounted. So we think only 5 legal deliveries have been bowled. So we allow another delivery. And that 7th delivery happens to be a no ball. We all know that usually a no ball needs to be rebowled because it's not a legal delivery. However, after that 7th delivery, which was a no ball, we get a shout from the scorers from the side of the field to inform us that that was the 7th delivery of the over. We should have called over already by now. So law is telling us here that even though normally we would re-bowl a no ball, because 6 valid deliveries have been bowled, we will not re-bowl the no ball that was actually the 7th ball of the over. We shall call over, and there won't be a free hit, and there won't be an extra delivery bowled because of that no ball. But importantly, that no ball will stand, and any runs off that no ball will count. And if there was a wicket that fell off that no ball, then that wicket will also stand. So very important for us to make sure we count correctly as umpires on the field of play. And how do we do that? We ensure that we count correctly by every over. When there are 3 balls left, we signal halfway. So this is usually at the waist height that you would move or just place your hand against your belt. Then we've got 2 balls remaining up here, and then we've got 1 ball remaining either in front of you or 45 degrees down to the side. If there are any no balls or wides or dead balls in an over, then we need to reconfirm how many balls are left in that over. If the first ball of an over is a no ball, that means there are still 6 balls remaining to be bowled. The universal signal for 6 balls remaining is a fist. And then if we have 5 balls remaining and there is a no ball or a wide, then we signal 5 out here. If there are 4 balls remaining, we signal in front of us so that it's very different from the 5. So 5 out here, 4 in front of us. 3 we've already discussed, halfway. 2 up here, 1 in front or down to the side at 45-degree angle. Whenever there is a interruption in play and whenever there is a fall of a wicket during an over, when you come together as umpires, you need to confirm how many balls are left in the over. The majority of the time that umpires miscount is when there is a event in the over, whether it's a wide, whether it's a no ball, whether it's a dead ball, whether it is a fall of a wicket or an injury to a player or anything else that disrupts the normal flow of a game. That is when we will typically miscount. So make sure that you confirm how many balls are left in the over every time there's an interruption, a no ball, a wide ball, or a dead ball. Are bowlers allowed to change ends? Yes, a bowler shall be allowed to change ends as often as desired, provided that he or she does not bowl any part of 2 consecutive overs in the same innings. So usually Kagiso Rabada would open the bowling for South Africa from the north end of the field, and then Lungingidi would open the bowling from the south end of the field. Kagiso Rabada cannot bowl the first over from the north end and then go and bowl the second over of the match or of that innings from the south end. Those are 2 consecutive overs in the same innings. As per law, not allowed. Yes, you can bowl the first over and then you can change ends and bowl the 4th over. because those would not be 2 consecutive overs. When does a bowler need to finish an over? Other than at the end of an innings, a bowler shall finish an over in progress unless he or she is incapacitated or suspended under any of the laws. So only injury or suspension can prohibit a bowler from completing an over once they have started it. So if a bowler is bowling poorly and gets hit for 6s and 4s and bowls a lot of no balls and a lot of wides in a over, is the captain allowed to change that bowler halfway through the over? No. Only if that bowler gets injured or gets suspended during an over are they allowed to be changed. If for any reason other than the end of an innings, an over is left uncompleted at the start of an interval or interruption, it shall be completed on resumption of play. Straightforward example, if an over is halfway through, 3 balls have been bowled and it starts raining, we go off the field for the rain interruption. Once it stops raining and the field is deemed fit for play by the umpires, when we come back onto the field of play, that over shall be completed by that same bowler from the same end, bowling the last 3 deliveries. So what happens if a bowler becomes incapacitated or picks up an injury or gets suspended during over? Law tells us that the umpire shall call and signal dead ball if this happens, and another bowler shall complete the over from the same end that the injured bowler was bowling from, provided that the replacement bowler does not bowl any part of the following over and did not bowl any part of the previous over. Remember, I mentioned earlier, no bowler can bowl any part of 2 consecutive overs in an innings. Moving on to Law 18, scoring runs. Firstly, how is a run scored? Law tells us that the score shall be added up by runs, and a run is scored so often as the batters at any time while the ball is in play have crossed and made good their ground from end to end. Also, we know that runs are scored when a boundary is scored. We have 2 types of boundaries. A boundary 4, where the ball crosses the boundary line after having made contact with the ground. And then we have a boundary 6, which has to be hit by the bat, and the ball has to fly over the boundary rope without a bounce. Once it is hit by the bat, no bounce inside the field of play, the ball lands outside of the field of play for the first time. And then penalty runs can be awarded to the batting side, and penalty runs can also be awarded to the fielding side. Throughout these laws, we will come across incidents when and why penalty runs would be awarded to either side, and we will learn about those as we go along. That is another way that runs are scored or awarded by either side. Let's talk about short runs, and you'll remember the signal for short runs from last week. A run is short if a batter fails to make good his or her ground in turning for a further run. So if batters cross and get to the other crease, but one of them does not ground their bat or person beyond the popping crease when they turn back for the second run. So you can only have a short run when more than one run is attempted. Although a short run shortens the succeeding one, the latter, if completed, shall not be regarded as short. So even though you might have turned short for the second run, as long as you complete the second run, that one will count. It's the first one where you turned short that will not count. Also, we have the example of batters like David Miller who bat outside of their crease. Law tells us here that a striker setting off for the first run from in front of the popping crease may do so without penalty. That means when David Miller batting outside of his crease against a fast bowler, when he hits a ball and decides to run a single, he does not need to come back into his popping crease before he can run. He can run forward immediately from where he has hit the ball outside of his popping crease. Now let's watch a video that shows us the difference between unintentional short runs and deliberate short runs, and they are dealt with very differently as umpires. So we need to understand what they look like in terms of the difference by the batters, and then we need to understand the procedures that we need to follow in the two different scenarios.
Hello guys, welcome to my channel. This video is a new addition to the analysis series. Let's get started. On 15th of November 2018, second day of second test match between Sri Lanka and England, a strange incident happened. Let's watch the footage. Looks like a normal short run case, isn't it? Well, that's not the case. Let's see what umpire's decision was. If you did not understand what he signaled, he initially disallowed all the runs scored by the batsman on that delivery. Further, he informed the batsman about deliberate short running and awarded 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. Now, let's see what the cricket law has to say about running short. There are two categories in this, unintentional and deliberate. Let's take a look at unintentional short running first. If a batsman runs short, then the umpire shall call and signal short run as soon as the ball becomes dead, and that run shall not be scored. For example, if they run 2 and if they run 1 short, then only 1 run will be scored. Now let's take a look at deliberate short run. Cricket law states that if either umpire considers that one or both the batsmen deliberately ran short, then wait for the ball to become dead and further disallow all the runs scored on that delivery, return the batsmen to their original end, and award 5 penalty runs to the fielding side. Now, let's see why the umpire considered this incident as deliberate short running. As you can see, both the batsmen start running and then striker Roshan Silva feels that the ball will reach the boundary. But upon seeing Moeen Ali has stopped the ball, he runs back to the striker's end. But in between, the striker Roshan Silva did not ground the bat at all, which made the umpire to consider this as deliberate short run. If he had at least tried to ground the bat, then most likely that the umpire would not have considered this as a deliberate short run. 5-run penalty for this feels a bit harsh, isn't it? Now let's see why exactly this law exists. In an IPL match between Mumbai Indians and Kings 11, while chasing 231, Mumbai Indians needed 16 runs of the last over. Kieron Pollard, who faces the first ball of the over, strikes the ball and sets off for the run, thinking that he can come back for 2. But upon realizing that he cannot make it, he runs back to the striker's end without completing the first run. And it can be seen that he did that deliberately as he wanted to get back the strike. It is clearly unfair as he got 1 run and also he came back to the strike. To prevent the players from doing such things, this law exists. But in Roshan Silva's case, he was not trying to gain any unfair advantage. But since he did not make any effort to complete the first run, it was ruled deliberate short run. Still have any doubts with this? Do let me know in the comment section. If you like the video, then hit the like button and share with all your friends. If you have not subscribed yet, then don't forget to subscribe for more such contents.
So let's look at more detail about unintentional short runs. If either batter runs a short run, the umpire concerned shall call and signal short run when the ball becomes dead, and that run shall not be scored. If after either or both batters run short, a boundary is scored, the umpire concerned shall disregard the short run and shall not call or signal short run unless the boundary is a result of an overthrow or willful act of a fielder. If both batters run short in one and the same run, this one short run shall be regarded as only one short run because they both completed the second run. If more than one run is short, then all runs called as short runs shall not be scored. So if they attempted 3 runs and 2 of them were short, then only 1 run would count. How would you communicate that to the scorers? At provincial level, we do have walkie-talkies or radios that we communicate to the third umpire with, and the third umpire will then communicate to the scorers that even though 3 runs were ran, 2 of them were short, therefore only 1 run should be recorded for this particular delivery. It's a little bit more tricky in club cricket. If you don't have a walkie-talkie or a radio, you need to shout or wave and somehow signal to the scorers that only 1 run will count. And the next interval that you have when you go off the field, you need to confirm with the scorers that for that particular delivery, they only recorded 1 run because 2 runs were short. Now, are any runs scored when a batter is dismissed? Let's see what the law says. When a batter is dismissed, any runs for penalties awarded to either side shall stand. So if there were 5 penalty runs awarded for whatever reason to the batting side or the bowling side, they will stand. No other runs shall be credited to the batting side except as follows. If a batter is out obstructing the field, the batting side shall score any runs completed before the obstruction occurred. If, however, the obstruction prevented a catch from being taken, then no runs other than the penalty runs shall be scored. If a batter is dismissed run out, the batting side shall score any runs completed before the wicket was fairly put down. So if the batters were attempting 3 runs and they only got run out on the 3rd run, then the 2 runs that they completed before being run out on the 3rd run, they will be added to the total. If, however, a striker who has a runner is dismissed run out, any runs completed by the runner and the other batter shall be disallowed. You might wonder why we still talk about runners. We know that in most international cricket around the world, runners are no longer allowed. However, in veterans cricket around the world, runners are still allowed. So that is why in the law book, you still find reference to runners. And here we do speak about a striker. If he or she has a runner and that striker is given out, run out, then even if the runner and the other batter had completed 2 runs before the striker was run out on the 3rd run, because the striker with a runner is not supposed to leave his or her crease at all, then no runs will be awarded for that striker being given out, run out with a runner. When does the non-striker have to return to their original end? When the striker is dismissed in any of the modes of dismissal listed below, the not out batter shall return to his or her original end. If the striker is out bowled, then the not out batter will remain at the non-striker's end. If the striker is out stumped, then the not out batter will remain at the non-striker's end. If the striker is given out hit the ball twice, then the non-striker will remain at the non-striker's end. If the striker is given out LBW, even if the umpire took so long that the batters had crossed by the time that the umpire gave the striker out LBW, the not out batter will have to either remain or return to his or her end, which is the non-striker's end. If the striker is out hit wicket, the non-striker will remain at the non-striker's end. Very important, if the striker is out caught, even if the batters managed to cross while the ball was in the air, the not out batter will return to the non-striker's end, and the new batter will be at the striker's end and will face the next delivery, unless, of course, that was the last ball of the over, in which case then the batter who is not out would face the first delivery of the next over. If the striker is out obstructing the field, where the obstruction or distraction prevents the striker from being out caught, then the not out batter will remain at the non-striker's end or return to the non-striker's end. The penultimate law that I'll be taking you through is Law 19, boundaries. First thing that we need to do as umpires when we get to a field is determine the boundary of the field of play. Along with the captains at the toss, we need to visibly see and decide, yes, that is the boundary for the match, and it will be fixed for the duration of the match. Once a match starts, you cannot increase, decrease, or adjust in any way the size of the boundary and the shape of the boundary. Very importantly, the boundary shall be determined such that no part of any side screen will at any stage of the match be within the field of play. At some fields, you find that the side screen is part of the boundary, which according to law is allowed. However, the International Cricket Council have introduced a playing condition recently to encourage player safety. So if you have a boundary rope or a boundary line, then the new playing condition determines that you cannot have a physical obstruction anywhere within 3 yards of that boundary rope or boundary line. That is to allow players to dive to try and field the ball inside the field of play. Quite often, when they do dive, they slide outside of the field of play. So that 3 yards is a margin of safety for them not to hit a side screen or hit a boundary advertising board. Where practical, the boundary shall be marked by means of a continuous white line or by an object in contact with the ground. If the boundary is marked by a white line, the edge of the line nearest to the pitch shall be the boundary. And we will have pictures in the next slide describing exactly what the law is telling us here. An object such as a flag, post, or board used merely to highlight the position of a line marked on the ground must be placed beyond the boundary and is not itself to be regarded as the boundary. So let's have some visual explanations of the previous slide. You can see the arrow there is pointing to the inside edge of that line closest to the pitch. That is the actual boundary. So the thickness of a boundary line or a boundary rope or a boundary cushion doesn't matter. It's the inside edge of the line, rope, or cushion that is the boundary. If you have a picket fence that is the boundary, then the inside edge of that picket fence is the boundary. If you have a rope and the ball lands on top of that rope, then it is boundary 6. Why? Because the inside edge of that rope is actually the boundary. Where we have posts and flags demarcating where the boundary line is, the posts and the flags are not to be considered as the boundary themselves. It's still the line, the inside edge of the line, that is the boundary. Last over that I'm, apologies, last law that I'm taking you through before we take a 15-minute break, and then Abdullah will take us through laws 21 to 26, is law 20, the dead ball. And I'm going to take you through when the ball automatically becomes dead. Law tells us that the ball will automatically become dead in the following scenarios. If the ball is finally settled in the hands of the wicketkeeper or of the bowler, then it will automatically become dead. However, those two words, finally settled, are subjective. It is up to the bowlers and umpire to decide when he or she feels that the ball is finally settled in the hands of the wicketkeeper or of the bowler. Law does not stipulate a time restriction as to how many seconds the ball needs to be in the hands of the wicketkeeper or of the bowler for it to be deemed to be finally settled. The bowler's end umpire needs to consider the body language of the fielding side as well as the batters at the crease. Have they considered the ball to be dead? If both sides have considered the ball to be dead, then the bowlers and umpires can consider the ball to be finally settled in the hands of the wicketkeeper or of the bowler. If the wicketkeeper is still waiting to see if a striker will fall off balance out of his or her crease, and then the wicketkeeper would stump that striker out, then that ball is not finally settled in the hands of the wicketkeeper. That is a judgment call that the bowler's end umpire needs to make. Law goes on to tell us that when a boundary is scored, the ball automatically becomes dead. Nothing further can happen for that delivery. When a batter is dismissed, the ball automatically becomes dead. In baseball, they have what's called a double play, where two batters can be out in the same ball. But in cricket, this is not possible. Why? Because as soon as one batter is dismissed, the ball becomes dead and nothing further can take place. Whether played or not, if the ball becomes trapped between the bat and the person of the batter, or between items of his or her clothing or equipment, then the ball automatically becomes dead. So you might sometimes see when the ball hits the inside edge of the bat and then rolls down into the flap of the pad and gets stuck between the flap of the pad and the thigh of the striker. A wicketkeeper or a short leg fielder might come running up to the batter to try and grab the ball out from the flap of the pad and claim a catch. That will not be out caught. Why? Because as soon as that ball became trapped, then it was automatically dead. Good umpiring practice in this situation. If you see a fielder running towards a striker to try and claim a catch when a ball is trapped in between his person and protective equipment, just call and signal dead ball to diffuse the situation. Whether played or not, if the ball lodges in the clothing or equipment of a batter or the clothing of an umpire, it shall also immediately become dead. If a player returns to the field without the permission of an umpire and comes into contact with the ball will automatically become dead. However, not a lot of players know this law, so good umpiring practice in this scenario would be to call and signal dead ball, and then we would award 5 penalty runs to the batting side. Also, the runs that have been completed and the run in progress, if they had crossed at the instant of that player handling the ball or coming into contact with the ball, those runs will be added to the total as well. So big punishment to the fielding side if a player returns to the field without permission of the umpires and comes into contact with the ball. Also, if there's an instant of illegal fielding, and we will come to that in Law 28 and the different types of illegal fielding, then automatically the ball will become dead. Again, good umpiring practice to call and signal dead ball just to make everyone aware that the ball has become dead because of the illegal fielding. In both these scenarios, that ball shall not count as a legal delivery in the over and needs to be rebowled. If the ball goes behind the wicketkeeper and hits the helmet that is placed behind the wicketkeeper on the ground, then the ball automatically becomes dead and 5 penalty runs will be awarded to the batting side. Again, good idea to call and signal dead ball. Most players do know this law, but not all the players on the field will see the ball hitting the helmet placed behind the wicketkeeper. So whichever umpire sees the ball hitting the helmet first, call and signal dead ball for everyone to know. Once the match is concluded, nothing further can happen. The ball is dead. Very important. Neither the call of over nor the call of time is to be made until the ball is dead. So wait for everyone to consider the ball to be dead before you, as the bowlers and umpire, after the sixth legal delivery of an over, to call over. And if it's the end of a session, you call over and time. That is over and time for me. It is now 2 p.m. We will take a 15-minute break and we will resume after the break with laws 21 to 26 presented by Abdullah Steenkamp.
My name is Abdullah Steenkamp, and I will take you through laws 21 up until 26. And after that, we will then open the floor for Q&A. We'll also go into the chat box to see if there are any questions in it. Law 21 covers no balls. So before I go into the various types of no balls, I want to emphasize that the no balls that I'm covering today are no balls as per the laws of cricket. You do find other type of no balls, like in 50 over or T20 cricket, where if there is not sufficient fielders inside the circle during power play overs, the umpire should also be calling no balls. But those are type of no balls that you'll find according to playing conditions for those type of competitions. For the purpose of this course, as well as level 1, 2, and 3, we will cover no balls as per the laws of cricket. So let's have a look what no balls are there as per the laws. Firstly, it's the mode of the delivery. So it's important for the umpire, as soon as the bowler hands his or her cap to the umpire to bowl, you, the umpire, need to ask the bowler whether he or she is right-handed or left-handed, and whether they're going to bowl over or around the wicket. And once you receive that information, you need to inform the striker. So the law tells us it's unfair for the bowler to change his or her mode without informing the umpire. And if they do change their mode, the umpire needs to call and signal no ball. So what do I mean by, what does the law mean by bowler changing their mode of delivery? So in the example where the bowler comes to you and the cap, umpire, I am bowling right-handed and I'm going to bowl over the wicket. You, the umpire, then needs to relay that information to the striker. Bowler then, let's say, delivers the first ball, bowling right arm over. Second ball, no issue, same, right arm over. Then the third ball of the over, the bowler suddenly decides he's going to bowl with his left hand. And then without informing the umpire, bowls the third ball of the over with the left hand. And if that is the case, the law sees that as unfair. The law wants you, the umpire, to intervene. And how do you intervene? Because the law sees it unfair, you, the umpire, needs to call and signal no ball. So what is unfair according to the law? The unfairness is if the bowler does not inform the umpire that he or she is changing their mode. And I'll just use the hands as an example. So according to the law, it is okay if you do decide, let's say, bowl a few balls with your left hand and then a few balls with your right hand. In the world, there are a few bowlers that's capable of doing it. So the law's happy with it. So you can change your hands as often as you want. But there's one condition that the law puts in place. If you are going to decide to change from left hand to right hand, before doing it, you must inform the umpire first. The umpire then will inform the striker that you are now bowling, let's say, left-handed. So you started the over bowling right-handed. Let's say after 3 balls, you now want to bowl with your left hand. The law allows for it, but you need to inform the umpire. The umpire then will inform the striker, and then you are allowed to bowl with your left hand. But what is unfair? If you do change hands or change mode, go from over to round and vice versa without informing the umpire. If that is the case, umpire then, as soon as you change your mode, will call and signal no ball. Underarm bowling also not permitted at any level of cricket. There are some level of cricket that do allow underarm bowling, like blind cricket, but that gets covered in the playing conditions for blind cricket, where they'll put, for this format of cricket, we will allow underarm bowling. But for any other cricket, underarm bowling not to be allowed. Also, the law wants the ball not to be thrown. I'm referring to a blatant throw. This is not baseball. This is cricket. The law does not want the ball to be thrown. We'll see in later slides what the punishment is if you are going to bowl underarm and if you are going to throw the ball. Earlier I mentioned in terms of changing your mode of the delivery. So one was bowling left or right-handed. The other thing was you need to inform the umpire whether you're going to bowl over or around the wicket. So how do you know when a bowler is bowling over or around the wicket? You need to look at the bowler and which side the bowler is going to bowl from. Don't look at the batter, whether the batter is left-handed or right-handed. That's irrelevant. You look at the bowler, and depending which side the bowler is bowling from, that will determine whether the bowler is bowling over or around the wicket. So let me explain how you identify whether the bowler is bowling over or around. So I'll need you to visualize. Let's start with the picture far left. First picture far left. So visualize where the arrow is pointing, that's where the batter is standing. Where the arrow starts, that's where the bowler is going to bowl from. So visualize this is the bowler with the ball in the right hand. So you also now just visualize where the stumps are. So this is where the stumps are. So now ball in the right hand. If the bowler gets to, as the bowler is going to deliver the ball, and the ball that the right hand, which the ball is in, is further away from the stumps, that means the bowler is bowling a right arm around the wicket. So first pick, visualizing, ball in the right hand, and if the bowler comes from this side, the bowling hand will be further from the stumps. The non-bowling hand, the left hand in this case, will be closer to the stumps. And if that is the case, bowler is bowling right arm around the wicket. Second pick from your left, same right hand bowler, ball is in the right hand. This time, the right hand with which the ball is in is closest to the stumps. And that is how you identify that this bowler is bowling a right arm over the wicket. The same principle will apply to a left-handed bowler. In the second pick from your right or third pick from your left, just visualize bowler has ball in the left hand. So if the arrow is where the striker is standing, and this is where the bowler is coming from, and here's where the stumps are, the ball that the bowling hand will be the furthest hand from the stumps, because the right hand will be closest to the stumps. And if that is the case, bowler's bowling around the wicket. And the last pick, this is ball is in the left hand, so this is the left hand bowler. So the left hand with the ball in it will be closest to the stumps. Hence, this is left arm over the wicket. I mentioned earlier about a ball being thrown or delivered underarm. So what do you do if suddenly a bowler throws a ball or delivers a ball underarm? Punishment is as follows. You need to call and signal no ball. After that, you need to give the bowler a first and final warning. Tell the bowler, underarm bowling is not permitted. So yes, I've called no ball, and I'm giving you your first and final warning. Similarly, for if the ball was thrown, and this is now a blatant throw. Blatant throw, bowler, I'm called no ball, and I'm giving you your first and final warning for throwing. This first and final warning to apply throughout the innings. I need to inform the fielding captain. I've just given the bowler first and final warning. I'll inform the batters. I'll inform my colleague of this as well. So what happens in that same innings? This same bowler again either throws the ball or delivers it underarm. What's the punishment? Again, I'll call and signal no ball. But now, because this is now the second instance in this same innings, now I'll call the captain of the fielding side. I'll say, Captain, I've given the bowler earlier in this innings a first and final warning. Now the bowler is again thrown at all bowled underarm. So yes, I've called no ball, but now there's further punishment here. The punishment now is you need to take this bowler out of the attack. This bowler is now not allowed to bowl further again in this innings. The bowler is suspended for this innings. Let's say it happened in the first innings. For the whole of the first innings, this bowler is not allowed to bowl. So if this happened midway through the over then needs to be completed by another bowler. And this new bowler that's now finishing the over should not have bowled the previous over, nor is this bowler allowed to bowl the next over. You then just need to inform everyone of what you just did, and you need to report this incident to the governing body of cricket for that particular competition. So when it comes to no balls, and especially the feet, and this happens week in, week out, it's important that we do know how the law says when it comes to the feet, how to handle it. So firstly, there's a difference between the back foot and the front foot, and there are different creases that goes with the back foot and the front foot. So firstly, when it comes to the bowler's back foot, the law wants that back foot to land within and not touching the return crease. So which crease goes with the back foot? Return crease. And that back foot must land within and not touch the return crease. So now we know back foot not touching the return crease. Front foot. What does the law say when it comes to the front foot? And which crease goes to the front foot? The popping crease goes with the front foot. And here the law wants the front foot to land with some part of the foot, whether grounded or raised, to be behind the back edge of the popping crease and to be on the same side of the imaginary line joining the two middle stumps. The slide covers the theory. I've got lots of pics that will show you how the theory works. Let's look at a few pics. Visualize. This is a right-arm bowler bowling over the wicket. Let's start with the front foot. What does the law tell about the front foot? Which crease goes with the front foot? The popping crease. So, is there any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the back edge of the popping crease? Yes, there is. So, absolutely no issue with the front foot. Let's go to the back foot. Is the back foot touching the return crease? Yes, it is. So, what does this mean? This ball is not a fair delivery. It is a no ball. Next pick. Let's start with the front foot. Is there any part of the front foot behind the back edge of the popping crease? Yes, the whole foot is behind, so absolutely no issue with the front foot. Back foot. Is the back foot touching the return crease? No, it is not. And because of that, this will be a fair delivery. This is now a left-arm bowler bowling around the wicket. We will stick to our process. Let's start with the front foot. Is there any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the back edge of the popping crease? Yes, there's quite a big part of the front foot behind the back edge of the popping crease. So we're happy with the front foot. So again, when it comes to the feet, we need to look at which crease goes with each foot. So when it comes to the front foot, the popping crease. So yes, I know the front foot is this side of the return crease, but when it comes to the front foot, the return crease is irrelevant. It's the popping crease that is important when it comes to the front foot. And for this left arm bowler bowling around the wicket, there's a big part of the front foot behind the back edge of the popping crease. That's why the front foot, absolutely no issue. Back foot. Is the back foot touching the return crease? No, it's not. That's why this is a fair delivery. Next pick. Again, let's start with the front foot. Is there any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the back edge of the popping crease? Yes, there is. So we're happy with the front foot. Back foot. Is there any part of the back foot touching the return crease? Yes, the back foot is touching the return crease. Hence, this is a no ball. This is now a right arm bowler bowling over the wicket. Is there any part of the back foot touching the return crease? No, it's not. So we're happy with the back foot. Front foot. Is there any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the back edge of the popping crease? Yes, you can see there is still a small portion behind the back edge of the popping crease. That's why this is a fair delivery. And again, emphasis on you look at the back edge of the popping crease and not the front edge of the popping crease. Next one. Back foot, we're happy. It's not touching the return crease. Front foot. Is there any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the back edge of the popping crease? No, it's not. That's why this is a no ball. Back foot, not touching the return crease, so we're happy with the back foot. Front foot. Any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the back edge of the popping crease? No, it's not. So this is a no ball. Before I go on to the next slide, I want to emphasize that when making these judgment call, let's say when judging the front foot, you need to look at first landing and not where the foot ends up. Because sometimes you do have bowlers that front foot lands and then it slides on the turf. So it's important, look at first landing. So in an example, let's say this was first landing. This is where the front foot landed. So if you ask yourself the question, is there any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the back edge? Yes, there is. That's why first landing, this is the fair delivery. But in this example, let's say this is where the front foot landed, but it ends up here. It slid on the turf. Don't look at where it ends up. You need to look at the first landing. And if it was behind, fair delivery. If this was the first landing, yes, it would be a no ball. Still a right arm bowler bowling over the wicket. Back foot, not touching the return crease, so we're happy. Front foot. Is there any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the back edge of the popping crease? Yes, you can see there is a portion. That's why fair delivery. Back foot, happy, not touching the return crease. Is there any part of the front foot, whether grounded or raised, behind the back edge of the popping crease? No, there's not. Hence, no ball. There are also other forms of no balls. According to the laws of cricket, the position of the keeper, limitation of onside fielders not to encroach on the pitch, The first three bullet points, I do have slides coming up that's going to show you exactly what is meant by the position of the keeper, limitation of onside fielders and fielders not to be on the pitch, dangerous and unfair short pitch deliveries, bowling of dangerous, unfair non-pitching deliveries, and deliberate front foot no ball. These are also other forms of no balls. Let's look at those first three bullet points. Position of the keeper. The law wants at all time the keeper to take the ball behind the stumps. The keeper needs to wait for the ball to pass the stumps, then take it, then take off the bails. If those hands do come in front of the stumps, like in this pick, the striker's in umpire needs to call and signal no ball. So for this to be legal, the keeper needs to wait for the ball to pass the stumps, then take off the bails, not grab it like this. And if those gloves comes in front of the stumps, striker's in umpire needs to call no ball. According to the laws of cricket, you only allowed a maximum of 2 fielders behind the popping crease on the leg side. So if you can just picture this being a right-handed batter. So behind the popping crease on the leg side will be the dark green shaded area. So the law wants a max of 2 fielders to be placed here. If you have more than 2 fielders, you need to call and signal no ball. Like in this example. A right-handed batter, there are more than 3 fielders behind square on the leg side. There are 3 fielders in this pick. The short leg is one under the helmet, the leg slip is the other one, and let's say this is short fine leg on the leg side. This is the third fielder. And if this is the case, the striker's in umpire correctly called no ball because you only allowed a max of 2. And the law does not want fielders to encroach on the pitch like this fielder. Fielders needs to stay off the pitch until the ball gets to the batter. If they do get onto the pitch, like in this case, and the ball gets delivered, you need to call and signal no ball. But good umpiring technique is, if I do see this, and a lot of players don't know the law, I'll ask the player just to move half a meter to the right, just to get off the pitch, so that where the fielder is standing is legal. But if this is the case, you need to call and signal no ball. The law wants the umpire to revoke the call of no ball if the bowler did overstep and does not deliver the ball. So bowler bowls the ball, you call no ball for the front foot overstepping, but then the bowler keeps onto the ball. In this case, and if you called no ball, you need to revoke that call of no ball because the bowler did not deliver the ball. And in this instance, you revoke the call of no ball, but you need to call and signal dead ball because the bowler did not deliver the ball. If you do have a wide and a no ball of the same delivery, who is boss? No ball is boss. So you're not going to give both the wide and the no ball of the same delivery. Let's say the bowler bowls a front foot no ball, front foot oversteps, nothing behind the back edge of the popping crease, and then the bowler bowls it wide down the leg side. So it's now wide and a no ball. Who's boss according to the law? No ball is always boss. No ball to override the wide ball call. When you call no ball, the ball is not dead. Anything can still happen. A batter can still be dismissed if you call no ball. And we'll see later on in the slide how a batter can be dismissed of a no ball. So penalty for the no ball. As soon as you call no ball, 1 run penalty, unless you revoke the call of no ball. But otherwise, as soon as you call no ball and the ball gets delivered, 1 run penalty. No ball is not a valid ball of the over, and that ball needs to be rebowled. And the last section under no ball is, how can you be dismissed of a no ball? There are in total 9 modes of dismissal. As soon as no ball is called, you can only be dismissed. Hit the ball twice, obstructing the field, or run out as soon as no ball is called. That's all that we're covering under no ball. Next law that I'm covering is the wide ball. And again, I want to emphasize the subsections under the wide ball that I'm going to cover now is wide ball as per the laws of cricket, as per modern cricket, like Test match cricket or Division 1 and 2 cricket that gets played over 4 days in South Africa. That is the wide ball that I'm going to focus on. It's not as per T20 cricket or 50 over cricket where the wides are much stricter. There's actually wide line guides on the pitch that helps the umpires consistently call wides. So I'm not referring to T20 or 50 over cricket. This is how you call a wide ball in modern cricket, like in a test match. So how do you judge a wide? The law guides us by telling us if a striker standing in a normal batting position and the ball passes wide of the striker. That's what the laws say. If that is the case, you need to call and signal wide ball. So normal batting position and the ball passes wide of the striker. So, what does the law mean by passing wide of the striker? The law actually guides us. And point 2 tells us that how do we consider a ball passing wide of the striker? The criteria that we need to use is if the ball is not within reach of the striker and for the striker to hit the ball by the means of a normal cricket shot. If that is the case, the ball will then be wide. So the criteria that you need to take into account is if a ball passes wide of the striker and the striker is not able to hit the ball by the means of a normal cricket shot, you need to call that wide. Other angle, if according to you the ball passes wide of the striker, but you think the striker can hit the ball by the means of a normal cricket shot, you will not call it wide. Yes, it is a judgment call. It's what you see. You need to make that judgment call using the criteria that the law gives us. And as long as you just apply it consistently throughout the game, then players will be happy. So as soon as you've judged the ball is wide, in terms of calling and signaling it, wait till the ball passes the striker's wicket and then you call and signal it. Again, the law emphasizes when it comes to calling and signaling it, don't be in a hurry to call and signal wide ball. Wait for the ball to get past the striker's wicket. And when it gets past the striker's wicket, then you can call and signal wide. Although technically the law tells us the law is the wide is actually considered technically as per the law from the instant that the bowler enters the delivery stride, but in terms of calling and signaling it, you need to wait till it passes the striker's wicket. Wide not to count as one of the valid balls of the over. So that ball, as soon as you call wide, needs to be rebuilt. And under previous law, we've covered how you can be dismissed of a no ball. There were 3 ways. So how can you be dismissed of a wide? There are 4 ways to be dismissed as soon as the umpire calls wide. What are they? Hit wicket. If the umpire calls wide, you can be dismissed hit wicket. If the umpire calls wide, you can be dismissed obstructing the field. Thirdly, you can be run out if the umpire calls wide. And then lastly, you can be stumped off a wide ball. Law 23 covers buys and leg buys. So what's the difference? Let's start with a buy. Let's see what the laws say when it is a buy. So a ball delivered by the bowler and goes past the batter without touching the bat or person. And if that is the case, and let's say it goes past the keeper, the batters are allowed to run. So that's the only condition that the law puts in place when it comes to buys. The ball that was delivered should not have touched the bat or person. And if that is the case, batters can run for the buy. So if it goes over the boundary, you will allow the boundary four. But again, just to emphasize, when considering a buy, all the criteria that you take into account is the ball should not have touched the bat or person. I mean, I played the game at club level for more than 25 years in Cape Town. And I thought I knew the laws. It's only once I did my intro and my level 1 and 2 and 3 that I actually found out I actually didn't know much of the laws. And you will surprise from international to provincial to Premier League to lower league players, all at all levels of cricket. A lot of players don't know the laws. So when it came to buys, so when I played, for all the players, we thought that if the ball, let's say, goes past the batter, let's visualize the following scenario. Bowler delivers the ball, batter shoulders arms, keeps bat high in the air. The ball does not touch the bat or person, and it goes through the keeper's legs, and the batters run. In my playing days, we thought that shouldn't be allowed because we were saying no shot off it, no shot off it. We'll see when it comes to leg buys, that is where that condition comes in, the no shot off it condition comes in. That is not one of the criteria when it comes to buys. The only criteria when it comes to buys is it should not have touched the bat or person. So like in my scenario, yes, the batter shouldered arms, but it didn't touch the bat or person. So you can allow buys in that instance. And if the ball goes over the boundary, you'll allow the boundary, the four. So how will you signal this to the scorers? You need to make two signals. You'll first need to signal the buy signal by lifting your hand facing the scorers, and the scorers needs to acknowledge your buy signal. And after they've acknowledged the buy signal, now you'll signal the boundary 4 signal, and in your boundary 4 with your hand in front of your chest, and the scorers needs to acknowledge the boundary 4 signal as well. So that's buys. Let's go to leg buys. So leg buys is when a ball was delivered by the striker, by the bowler, and now after being delivered, the ball strikes anywhere on the person or the protective equipment of the striker. So yes, I know they call it leg buys, and I would say 95% of the time or 90% of the time it strikes the leg, yes. But the law tells us anywhere on the person. So if it strikes the arm, if it strikes the tummy, if it strikes the buttock, the back, anywhere on the person or the protective equipment of the striker, you can consider leg buys. But there are two conditions that needs to be met before you can allow the leg buy. And what are those conditions? There needs to be an attempt to play at the ball by the striker, and this is where this playing a shot must offer a shot comes in, or the striker needs to try to avoid being hit by the ball. So this is where the condition of playing at the ball or trying to avoid at the ball. If these two bullet points or these conditions are not in place, leg buy should not be awarded, but we'll get to that in the next slide. So for leg buys to be awarded, the ball needs to strike any part of the person or the protective equipment like the helmet or the arm guard, as two examples. And let's say it strikes the pad, it ricochets to fine leg. The batters are allowed to run if the striker attempted to play at the ball or try to avoid being hit by the ball. If that is the case, leg buys then can be awarded. If the delivery was a no ball, that no ball then to count. So now we know when leg buys can be awarded. We know the conditions that must be in place for leg buys to be awarded. So, leg buys. When will leg buys not be awarded? So if the umpires feel that the striker did not attempt to play at the ball with the bat, or the striker did not try to avoid being hit by the ball, and this is where the no shot offered comes in. If there was no attempt to play at the ball, if the striker did not offer a shot, and let's say the ball hits the pad and they do decide to run, according to the law, those leg byes should not be awarded, because for leg byes to be awarded, the law wants a shot to be played or try to avoid being hit by the ball. If there's no shot played, then the striker didn't try to avoid being hit by the ball, leg byes not to be awarded. So what happens, and you see this happen at all levels of cricket, even at provincial cricket, I've seen the following happens where the striker don't offer a shot, the ball hits the pad, and let's say it ricochets to fine leg, they still run. So what do you do if they run? The law guides us and tell us what to do. The law tells us, but if the strikers do decide to run, yes, they're not supposed to run if they didn't offer a shot and it hit the pad. But if they do decide to run, if they don't know the law, it's not the umpire's problem, it's not the fielding side's problem. So the law actually gives the fielding side an opportunity to run out either of these two batters. But this can only happen in the first run. Why? Because the law tells us if the batters after striker didn't play a shot, it ricochets to, let's say, third man, and they do decide to run, you only call and signal dead ball as soon as they either complete that first run. So they do run, and the striker gets to the other side, i.e., now the bowling side, and the non-striker now gets to behind the striker's end. As soon as they complete that first run, that is where you, the umpire, intervene by calling and signaling dead ball. Or if the ball goes over the boundary, you can call and signal dead ball. So if the striker did not attempt to play at the ball, it hits the pad, goes to fine leg, and they do run, don't intervene immediately. You must wait till they complete that first run, or if the ball goes to the boundary. It's only on the completion of that first run that is where you intervene by calling and signaling a dead ball. What else do you do? So we've just said they're not allowed to run, but now they did run a single. And because they got to the other end, and now you've only called dead ball. Now the law tells us further, you need to disallow that run not to count. You need to send batters back to their original ends. Signal no ball to the scorers, if applicable. Award any other 5 penalty runs, except if the ball should hit the protective helmet belonging to the fielding side. So those runs should not be allowed. Send the batters, back. You've called dead ball, you need to send them back to their original ends. Law 24 covers what happens if a fielder is absent from the field of play and substitutes. Let's first start with substitutes. When do we allow a substitute fielder? The law guides us by telling us we shall allow a substitute fielder if the umpire is satisfied that that fielder became injured or ill, and importantly, that injury or illness needs to happen during this particular game. They cannot come into a game with an injury or illness. So if that is the case, the umpire is satisfied, yes, the player became injured or ill. Let's say a player comes to you and say, umpire, I've pulled my hamstring, can I go off to get some treatment? Yes, now the player is injured. You'll allow the player to go off to get treatment, and then you'll allow a substitute fielder to come on for that fielder while he or she is getting treatment. Also, if there is a wholly acceptable reason why a player is not on the field, the law also allow for a substitute fielder. So these are the two instances where we will, as umpires, allow a substitute fielder. So now the player that went off is getting treatment. We've allowed a substitute on the field. So what powers does this substitute fielder have? The substitute fielder can only do one thing, only field. That substitute is not allowed to bowl, not allowed to act as captain, not allowed to be the wicket keeper. But If the umpires give consent, yes, then they can be keeper. So no, not bowl, not bat, not be captain. Can be keeper, but umpires needs to give the go-ahead to be keeper. So you can see substitute have limited powers. So what happens if a fielder is absent or leave the field of play? So back in the day, before this law was changed, fielders used to abuse this law. What did the fielders do? They would fake an injury. They would come to the umpires and say, umpires, I need to go have treatment on my hamstring. Meanwhile, there's nothing wrong with them. They would fake it. They just want to go off, to go to the change room, to sit back, put their feet up, to have let's say, a smoke break, to take a shower, to watch some TV, to whatever. They would fake it just to go off for a few minutes. And because of all the players abusing this law, the lawmakers decided, no, we need to tighten this law because players are lying, cheating, abusing it. So what did the lawmakers decide to do? The lawmakers decided that if a fielder comes to you and say, okay, umpire, I've injured myself, I need to go off to get some treatment. Okay, no problem. We as umpires will allow the fielder to go off. But what you need to do as the umpire, you need to take out your notebook. You need to write down in your notebook, let's say um, Cindy going off for treatment, let's say a hamstring. And importantly, you need to write down the time that Cindy left the field of play. And we'll see later on why that time is so important. So we'll allow Cindy to go get treatment, but we'll need to take down the time and the name and the reason. Then, before Cindy can come back onto the field of play, Cindy needs to get the permission of the umpires before she can come back. So usually what happens, after getting treatment, fielder will stand on the boundary, fielder will wave to the umpire, umpire, I'm fit again, can I come back on? You'll then allow Cindy to come back on. And importantly, you need to take out your notebook because you need to write down the time that Cindy returned. And we'll see in point number 3 why that time is important when she returned. So it's very important before the injured player that received treatment comes back to the field of play, they must inform the umpire. We need to know the time that they're coming back. You'll see in later in 2 slides time, if a fielder comes onto the field without that fielder that received treatment comes back without informing the umpire, there's quite a harsh punishment for that fielder coming back without informing the umpire. But we'll get there in 2 slides time. But for now, what the lawmakers did was, we'll allow the player to go off. We need to take out our notebook. We need to write down the time the player left. Also importantly, when a player comes back, we need to write down the time that the player came back. So why is that important? Because now point 3 is telling us, and the law wants, before that player is allowed to bowl, that player needs to be back on the field for the same amount of time that that player has been off the field, up to a max of 90 minutes. So let me use an example to illustrate how the law works. So let's use Cindy, and let's just for example's sake, I'm going to use round numbers. So let's say 10:30, Cindy comes to you. Umpire, hamstring. Can I go off to get treatment? No problem, Cindy. Please let us know when you come back. At 11 o'clock, Cindy waves to you at the boundary. Umpire, fit again. Can I come back? You will allow Cindy back at 11 o'clock. So you take out your notebook. You see Cindy went off at 10:30, back at 11. So Cindy was off for 30 minutes. So now what you need to tell Cindy, now what the law wants us to do is, before Cindy's allowed to bowl, she needs to field for that same amount of time that she was off. So Cindy was off for 30 minutes. So before Cindy can bowl again, she needs to wait, so she needs to be on the field and field for 30 minutes. So seeing that she returned at 11 o'clock, at 11:30, now she's been on the field for 30 minutes, so 11:30, Cindy can bowl again. So that's how penalty time works. Yes, you can go off, but before you bowl, you need to field for that same amount of time. That's how the law works. In more day cricket, like Test cricket, penalty time doesn't disappear. On day one, if you've been off for 60 minutes and for 60 minutes, and it's the end of the day, that 60 minutes doesn't disappear at the end of the day. It gets carried forward into the next day, day two. You still owe 60 minutes. You need to serve that 60 minutes before you're allowed to bowl. So it goes into the next day. It goes into the next innings. Yes, it won't go into the next match, but next day, next innings, your penalty time, if you owe, you need to first serve it before you're allowed to bowl. So there are times where penalty time will not be incurred, where you don't need to serve any penalty time. What are those instances? I mentioned earlier that the lawmakers tightened this law because players abused it. They would lie, they would cheat, and just want to go off to put their feet up, to go have a smoke, to go have a sour. So they would fake injuries to go off to get treatment. So the lawmakers tightened it, and in the previous slide I've mentioned how we need to deal with it. But the lawmakers also, said, yeah, there will be instances and where no penalty time needs to be incurred. So you don't need to serve any penalty time. So what are those instances? If a player suffers an external blow, and the emphasis is on external blow, and this external blow happened during the game, on the field while play is in progress, and on the field of play. So I'll use an example just to illustrate what is meant by external blow. So if you can visualize the following example, let's use Cindy again. So Cindy is the bowler. She delivers the ball. The striker hits the ball back down the pitch. Cindy puts out her hand and try to stop the ball. The ball then goes against her finger, and let's say ricochets to mid wicket. So striker hit the ball quite hard down the pitch. Cindy put out the hand, ball hits the finger. Cindy's finger now starting to swell up. Cindy then comes to say, umpire, look here, my finger is starting to swell up. Can I go off to put some ice on this finger, to get treatment on this finger? Yes, no issue. You'll allow Cindy to go off. And let's say Cindy left at 10:30. So Cindy went left to get some treatment on that injured finger. And let's say Cindy came back at 10:50. So Cindy was off for 20 minutes. So now the law is telling us, because of this external blow that you, the umpire, saw, we saw batter hitting the ball straight back, ball went against Cindy's finger. Because of this external blow, Cindy does not have to serve that 20 minutes before she can bowl. So when Cindy comes back on the field at 10:50, yes, he was off for 20 minutes, but because of the external blow, Cindy can bowl immediately. So again, yeah, here's no player trying to cheat, to lie, to go off to get treatment. We saw the external blow happening. So we'll allow Cindy to go off, get treatment, then no penalty time to be incurred. Secondly, also no penalty time to be incurred if, let's say, Cindy's not there for a valid reason. The law calls it a wholly acceptable reason, but it needs to be a wholly acceptable reason. And I'll give you an example now of what a wholly acceptable reason is. It can't be the Cindy stuck in traffic, or that's not to me a wholly acceptable reason. Examples of a wholly acceptable reason is you often find in Cricket South Africa's Division 1 and 2 competitions, the 4-day competitions, there's lots of students that study at tertiary institutions, and they write exams on a Saturday morning. Let's say the exams from 9 till 12. So obviously, let's say Cindy's writing an exam on Saturday. She informed us, umpires, I'm writing the exam. I won't be at the field from 9 till 12. Let's say she only gets to the field at 1 o'clock. So yes, the play started at 10 o'clock in the morning. Let's say we took lunch at 12 o'clock, so Cindy wasn't there for 2 hours. But now, because of the wholly acceptable reason why Cindy was not at the field, i.e. in this example, she wrote exam. That's a wholly acceptable reason why she's not there. We're not going to penalize Cindy. She does not have to serve any penalty time. So when she comes back onto the field after writing her exam, Cindy can bowl immediately. And lastly, under law 24, and I mentioned it earlier that it's important that when a player goes off to receive treatment, before that player comes back on, that player needs to inform the umpire, either of the umpires, because it's important. We need to know when that injured player is back because we need to work out that penalty time. So if the player comes back onto the field without informing the umpire, just look at the punishment. As soon as that player touches the ball, that ball automatically becomes dead. 5 penalty runs to the batting side. Runs completed by the batters also to count. And if they cross, as soon as that player that came back touched the ball, if they cross and they at the instant of the touch, that run also to count. Ball not to count as one for the over. You will then need to inform everyone, like both captains, the batters, what has happened, and you need to report this to the governing body of cricket for that particular competition. So you can see quite a stiff punishment if a player comes back that received treatment, that came back onto the field of play without informing the umpires. That's all under Law 24. Law 25 covers batters, innings, and runners. Tom mentioned this earlier. About runners. Yes, the law still allow for runners, but we know in most competitions across the world, there's playing conditions in place, and the playing conditions states clearly no runners to be allowed. But that's playing conditions. Playing conditions overrides the law, and if it's in the playing conditions that's no runners allowed, we will follow the playing conditions. But it is still allowed in the laws of cricket. When it comes to when does a batter's innings start? The two openers, their innings will start when play is called by the umpire. Let's say at the start of play, that is when their innings will start. Innings of other batters, let's say the number 3 batter. So the opening batters, let's say play started at 10 o'clock. First ball, umpire calls play at 10. That's when the innings of the opening batter start. Now let's say at 10:20, one of the openers gets dismissed. Now the number 3 batter is going to come in. So when does the innings of the number 3 batter start? Is it when the batter gets to the wicket to take guard? When does it start? No. The law guides us, the law tells us the innings of the opening bat, of the number 3 bat, will start as soon as he or she steps onto the field of play. As soon as that batter puts his or her foot over the boundary rope to step onto the field, that's when that inning starts. Earlier I mentioned that penalty time and before a fielder that left the field of play is allowed to bowl, that player needs to serve penalty time before they're allowed to bowl. Same principle will be on a batter starting their innings. And again, batters also, it's not just fielders or bowlers that abuse this law. Batters also abuse this law. So what happened back in the past is you'd find the opening batters. They let's say the side A is 8 wickets down or 9 wickets down. One of the opening bats, knowing that it's soon going to be the end of the innings, so now that opening bat wants to go off, take a shower, put his or her feet up, just to get some rest before the start of side B's innings. So opening bats also used to abuse it, or batters used to abuse it. So now the law is saying, okay, if a player goes off and they still owes penalty time, they need to to wait that same amount of minutes that they're off before they are allowed to bat. There is a but, and we'll come to that but. I'll give you an example. Let's say, and I'm just going to use the round numbers for example purposes. Let's say the opening bat left the field at 2 o'clock, and let's say side A was 8 wickets down. So now the opening bat knows it's just 2 more wickets, then the end of the innings, then I'll have to go bat. So the opening bat leaves at 2 o'clock. So umpire, I say, umpire, hamstring, can I go get treatment? Umpire writes down name, hamstring, time 2 o'clock. At 3 o'clock, the 10th wicket gets taken. So side A gets dismissed at 3 o'clock. So the opening bat was off the field for 60 minutes. So now what will happen? We'll have a change of innings. Change of innings will be from 3 o'clock till 10 past 3. So the side B's innings will start at 10 past 3. Is the opening bat allowed to bat? No, he's not. Why? Because that player was off for 60 minutes. So that player first needs to wait for the innings to be in progress for 60 minutes. So if the inning starts at 10 past 4, at 10 past 3, that opening bat needs to wait an hour before he can bat. So only at 10 past 4, the opening bat can come bat. Needs to wait for 60 minutes. Yeah, this is how the lawmakers tighten the laws. Players abuse this law back in the day. I mentioned earlier there is a but, and that but is if a side has lost 5 quick wickets, a player can come back after 5 wickets is down, even if they still owe penalty time. I'll use an example, and I'll use the same example that I've just used. Let's say the opening bat left at 2 o'clock. The innings ended at 3 o'clock. So now there was a 10-minute change of innings, so 15-10, side B will come out to bat. So now we know the opening bat cannot open the innings because he was off for 60 minutes. So he now needs to wait 60 minutes before he's allowed to bat. So 10 past 4, he can bat again. So side B's inning starts at 10 past 3. The opening bowler takes a hat-trick in that first over. So 3 quick wickets fell in the first over. In the third over, another 2 quick wickets. So we get to 3:30, and the side is 5 down. Let's say they're 20 for 5 at 3:30. So remember, the inning started at 10 past 3. The opening bat is only allowed to bat at 10 past 4. But at 15:30, after 20 minutes in the innings, the team is 5 wickets down. And this is where the but come in. Because the side is 5 down, the law now allows this opening bat to come into bat. Yes, the innings has only been in progress for 20 minutes. So technically, that opening bat still owes 40 minutes. But because the side is 5 down, we'll allow that opening bat to come in at 15:30 when that 5th wicket fell. But it must be 5 wickets down. You cannot be 4 down or 3 down or 2 down. It's only 5 down or more, then the opening bat can come out to bat. If there was an unscheduled stoppage like rain, the batter needs to come notify the umpire in person before they're able to bat, and then from that moment onwards, the unscheduled break will count as penalty time served. Does the law allow a batter to retire? Yes, the law allows for it. The law tells us a batter may retire at any time during his or her innings when the ball is dead. But that batter needs to inform the umpire why he or she is retiring. Because why? If a batter tells you, yes, umpire, I want to retire, and if that retirement is due to either an injury or illness or an unavoidable cause, that batter can come later on to resume his or her innings. And if not, that batter will be retired, not out. So yes, if a batter is not well, if a batter is injured, a batter can retire and can come back later on. But if a batter do decide to retire for any other reason other than injury or illness or unavoidable cause, before that batter is allowed to bat later, that batter needs the consent of the opposing captain. And if no consent is given, unfortunately, that batter cannot come later on. Last slide under Law 25. Striker's right to play the ball. The law gives the striker the right to play at the ball without interference from any fielder, keeper or any other fielder. Striker is allowed to protect the wicket if the ball is going to roll onto the stumps. So strikers got all the right to play at the ball. Okay, but the law wants the striker to be on the pitch at all time when playing at the ball. So the striker must have some part of the bat or person, whether grounded or raised, on the pitch. The striker cannot leave the pitch to play at the ball. If no part of the striker's bat or person is on the pitch, you need to intervene as the umpire. And how do you intervene? You need to call and signal dead ball. So the striker must be on the pitch to play at the ball. Those days of the bowler delivering the ball and let's say it goes off the pitch and roll totally off the pitch and striker leaves the pitch to go hit that ball, those days are gone. The law wants, if the striker wants to play at the ball, the striker must be on the pitch. And if the striker is not on the pitch, please intervene as the umpire. And how do you intervene? By calling and signaling dead ball. The last law that I'm covering before handing back to Tom is practice on the field. Are you allowed to practice on the field? When are you allowed to practice on the field? Are there any punishment for practicing on the field? Let's first start with the pitch and the rest of the square. As soon as the game has started, no practice on the pitch at any time, on any day of the match. Pitch is totally forbidden. In terms of the rest of the square, also no practice to take place on the rest of the square unless umpires has given approval to practice on the square. But in terms of the match pitch, nothing can happen on the match pitch. No practice. Bowlers cannot be bowling practice balls on the pitch to say, umpire, let me just bowl one ball. I want to see if there's any bounce or how high the bounce is or how low the bounce is. You will not allow any practice on the pitch or the rest of the square. Yes, you can the rest of the square, but with the approval of the umpires. So now we know on the pitch and the square, not allowed. Are players allowed to practice on the outfield? Yes, they are. So the law tells us before play starts, both teams can practice on the outfield. Absolutely no issue. After the close of play, players can practice on the outfield. During lunch, tea or your lunch and your tea intervals or your change of innings interval, players can, or both teams can practice on the outfield. Absolutely no issue. There is a but. If the umpires do feel that if we are going to allow players to practice on the outfield before the start of play, after the close of play or during lunch and tea, and that practice will cause significant deterioration to the outfield, we as the umpires can say, guys or girls, unfortunately the outfield lots of rain. We're not going to allow you to practice before the start of play or during lunch because the outfield is brittle. If we are going to allow you to practice, it's going to cause significant deterioration. We the umpires do have that power, but that's the exception to the rule. Usually, absolutely no issue. Practice on the outfield is allowed. Also, we've just covered in the previous slide, before the start of play, during lunch, after the close of play. Can we allow practice while play is in progress? The law say, yeah, but only fielders that's on the field of play, they are allowed to practice on the field between the call of play and time. You're not allowed to use any other match ball other than the match ball. You can't bring other balls onto the field of play and start uh, uh, practicing. Not allowed any bowling practice in the area between the square in the direction parallel to the match pitch. Also, the umpires needs to be satisfied if you are practicing. This practicing will not contravene changing the condition of the ball or time wasting by the fielding side. So what is the punishment if players do contravene practicing? Like, for example, a player decides to bowl a ball on the match pitch. What is the punishment? Firstly, if you player bowls the ball on the match pitch, you will warn the player and tell that player, that practice is on the pitch is not permitted. You need to inform the other umpire, and you need to inform both captains of that the players bowl the practice ball on the match pitch. This is not allowed. So you've given the player a warning. So what happens if any of the players does it again? Let's say another bowler later on wants to bowl a practice ball on the match pitch. Now the punishment is 5 penalty runs to the opposing side. You'll then inform the other umpire. You need to inform the scorers, and both captains needs to be informed of what just happened and why you're giving the 5 penalty runs. And then lastly, you need to report this to the governing body of cricket, and they need to decide whether they're going to take any action on this bowler or bowlers that bowl the practice ball on the pitch. Tom, thank you so much. That is all I'm covering today. Handing back to you.
Thank you very much, Abdullah. And thank you also to the candidates who have put questions in the chat box. We shall now be taking all of those questions to complete our lecture today. Younger asks, can I please get the list of laws? Younger, last week, Friday night or Saturday morning, I sent an email with all the course material, the presentation, as well as a PDF document which has the entire laws of cricket book in it. So I'm guessing that you didn't get that email. I will send it again this Friday after all of our lectures. Please, if you did not get an email from me last week, Friday or Saturday, please put your email address into the chat box, and I will make sure that you all get that email with a recording of this week's lecture, as well as the presentation to download, as well as the laws of cricket PDF. So Younger, please put your email address into the chat box now. Anele, as mentioned, the recording of last week's lecture was on that same email, so I'm assuming you also didn't get that email. So please, Anele, put your email address into the chat box, and on Friday you will get a link to the recording of last week's lecture. You'll also get a link to the recording of this week's lecture. In fact, while we have this meeting, I can put into the chat box a link of the recording to last week's lecture so that you all have it now, and you can, those of you who missed it, can watch it after today's lecture. So I am putting into the chat box the link to the recording of last week's lecture. there you all have it. Okay, next question is from Ompile. Why is it that no balls are still bowled in school league games? Ompile, that's a very broad question. Abdullah has taken us through how no balls are called in the laws of cricket. And maybe what you're asking is there a limit to the number of no balls that are bowled in a school match, in an over? In some schools, in some competitions, they do limit the total number of deliveries that can be bowled in an over. Even if we do not have 6 legal deliveries bowled, to prevent an over for lasting for too long, some schools do limit an over to 8 deliveries. So if 2 no balls have been bowled in the over, then we will not allow more deliveries. So after 8 deliveries have been bowled, then regardless of whether that 8th delivery was a no ball or a wide, the umpire will call over. That is a playing condition for some schools' matches, but according to law, if you keep bowling no balls, then you have to re-bowl that delivery. Unless, as mentioned, we discovered that 6 legal deliveries had already been bowled. So that would mean that even though a no ball was bowled, when we discovered that 6 legal deliveries had been bowled and then the no ball was bowled, we will call over. I hope that answers your question, Ompile. Zenobia asks, why is the game kept on hold if there's only one umpire? Zenobia, I'm not sure when you have seen that happen. If there is only one umpire available to umpire a match, typically what happens is that that umpire will be the bowler's end for the entire match. And then for striker's end, we will have a member of the batting team or a coach standing at striker's end, helping the bowler's end umpire to keep count of the deliveries, and also will have to adjudicate on stumpings, runouts at the striker's end, and hit wicket appeals. All other decisions will be made by the bowler's end umpire, who is the qualified umpire. So Zenobia, if you get to a match and you are the only umpire, yes, you can wait until your partner arrives. But if your partner does not arrive, then you, as the only qualified umpire, would have to be the bowler's end umpire for the entire duration of that match. I hope that answers your question, Zenobia. Abdullah, Witumelo gave us 6 questions last week, if I remember correctly. And we have some questions again from Witumelo. First one, what will happen to the umpire if miscounted and the opposition saw that? Would the game continue? Will the umpire be trusted for that mistake, Abdullah? Or is that umpire going to get fired because they couldn't count to 6?
Yeah, Boitumolo, it is vital. Firstly, we as the umpires, we are, impartial. We don't belong to, in any of the teams. We don't choose any sides. We are objective, and it is so vital that the umpires do get the counting spot on. So it's a vital part. You need to try to make sure that you get your counting spot on. And yes, there will be times, and it happens to all of us, even at the highest level, right down to club level, where we do at times, miss a ball or two, or do allow an extra ball or two. But that should be the exception to the rule. It shouldn't be happening every over or every second or third over. So yeah, the law covers this. So if we do miscount, the law tells us that whatever you've counted, that will count. If you allowed a 5 ball over, and I mean you didn't do it on purpose, you've whatever reason why you've miscounted, you've allowed a ball less or a ball more. It wasn't done to cheat on purpose. So yeah, you will allow the game to continue. Um, I mean, your question is about umpire being trusted for the mistake. Yeah, we impartial. We're not favoring any side. We didn't on purpose, counted the ball less or a ball more to favor the side. Just one of those things, and it do happen. As I said, it happens at the highest level, where occasionally we do. They even miscount, but that's the exception to the rule. And yes, the game needs to continue. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Tula. Another question from Buitumelo. If the score sheet does not balance and the umpires have been indicating the correct information and the correct signals to the scorers, who is at fault for the score sheets not balancing, and what happens at the end of the game? Tula?
So, Botemelo, it is important that those score sets do balance, and that's why important that the scorers sit next to each other. The law even emphasized that scorers needs to frequently check their records. So that's why they sit next to each other, and regularly they need to confirm overs, balls, overs, runs. Regularly check their records. Yes, you do find on occasions where the records don't tie up. There is a discrepancy. If we find there is a discrepancy, we as the umpires need to sit with the scorers. We need to find the mistake. So we need to go back. Let's say, over back, or 2 overs back, 3 overs back. We need to find where that mistake is, and we need to fix that mistake. If, let's say, the side still needs to, the bookies, 10 runs out, and they picked up the mistake, and the batting side still needs to score 10 runs to win the game, the law tells us we need to go back, and the batting side needs to go bat and score the 10 runs. So yeah, together with umpires and the scorers at the end of the game, we need to make sure it balances. If it doesn't balance, we need to find why it's not balancing, balancing it, and get to the correct total. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Tula. Another question from Buitumelo. Abdullah, you spoke about one of the times that as an umpire we would call no ball is if the bowler threw the ball with a bent arm instead of bowling it with a straight arm. So Buitumelo wants to know, how does an umpire judge whether the bowler has his or her arm straight or not?
Yes, Boitumelo, that is a very, very, very difficult judgment call to make, especially if it's not, a blatant throw, like a baseball throw. If it's clear and obvious throw, then it's easy. But I would say 9 out of 10 times, it's not, not blatant, not as easy. So now, how do we judge? So because it is so difficult to judge with the you know, with the naked eye, whether the bowler's action is a throw or not. And I can explain to you how it's handled, you know, at the highest level. So at test match or at international level. So what happens is, if the umpires do suspect that the bowler has a suspect action, they will then report the bowler. That bowler then needs to go for testing at an independent testing lab, and at that lab they will then put the bowler through his or her paces and check whether the bowler is throwing or not. If the lab clears the bowler, then the bowler is given given a go ahead to continue playing. If the action is suspect or seen as thrown, the bowler then needs to go through remedial action. So that happens at the highest level. If we come a bit down, let's say at club level, um, all we can do as umpires is, it's difficult for us to judge it with the naked eye. We need to, if we do suspect that a bowler's action is not legal, we as the umpires need to report it. We then send it to the governing body of cricket for that particular competition, and they do have, and I know all the bodies do have committees that look at suspect actions. The committee then need to investigate and look at this bowler's action, and they then need to make a finding. So yeah, difficult for us umpires with the naked eye to see whether it's thrown or not. So that's why we follow the route of reporting the bowler, reporting it to the governing body. These committees in place that investigate suspect actions, they'll investigate and they will come up with a finding. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Tula. Marumo asks, can we have a law booklet? Because Marumo has got a problem with his phone. So Marumo, there are currently 1,589 candidates registered for the introduction to umpiring course. I do not think that there are 1,589 law books in South Africa. So unfortunately, we won't be able to distribute a law book to all of you. That is why we are emailing the law book in PDF format for all of you to have digitally on your phones or your computers. What we will be doing after you pass the intro to umpiring exam, you will be invited to the level 1 exam. And those of you who pass the level 1 exam, we will be coming to the different hubs around the country. We won't visit all 70 hubs, but we will try and get to all the provinces, and we will have practical training for all of you who have passed level 1. Depending on the numbers that have passed level 1, hopefully we will be able to source enough law books to give all of you who have passed level 1 a physical blue law book. And so you will get it in November when we go around the country having our practical training sessions with you. So Marumo, until then, you will have to somehow use the electronic law book, or you can download the app called The Laws of Cricket. It is available on the Google Play Store as well as the Apple App Store. It's called The Laws of Cricket, and the logo for it is the blue Laws of Cricket book, and it's easy to find and easy to download. This is what the blue Laws of Cricket book looks like, and the cover of the app also, the logo of the app also looks like this. Okay. Abdullah, another question from Buitumelo, and I'm going to ask Buitumelo to maybe unmute his or her microphone to talk us through this. He or she, I'm not sure if it's a male or a female, says, how do you call the ball? So I'm not sure if they're talking about a wide ball or a no ball. Boitumelo, please unmute your microphone and you can ask your question with a bit more detail. Then we've got a question from Snow Bunny.
Hello?
What will happen? Yes, Boitumelo.
Yeah, I'm a lady. So my question was based
Okay.
on Abdullah talking about calling and giving a signal. So I wanted to understand that if I call, how do I call? Do I say a word or I just signal? When I say call and signal, that's what I wanted to understand.
Okay, Boitumelo, thanks for identifying yourself and apologies that I did not know your gender. We now know Boitumelo is a lady, Abdullah. So how does Boitumelo call and signal no ball? Abdullah?
So Boitumelo, as soon as it happens, let's use the front foot as an example. The bowler's oversteps, no part of the front foot behind the back edge of the popping crease. As soon as that foot lands, you, as the bowler's in umpire, needs to loudly call and signal no ball. So you will loudly call it no ball, and you put your hand out. So you call it so that the players can hear that this ball is now a no ball. So now everyone is aware it's a no ball, and I've covered there's now only 3 ways how a batter can be dismissed of a no ball. So yes, you need to verbally call it out loudly firstly. So when it happens, you call no ball and you'll put your hand out. So everyone is now, all the players on the field is now aware that this ball is a no ball. So you'll let play continue. As soon as the ball is dead, you then also need to repeat your signal. You don't have to verbally call it to the scorers, but your signal of no ball needs to be repeated to the scorers, and they then need to acknowledge the signal. So yeah, you need to audibly call it and signaling it, and that is to inform the players that it's now happened. And then when the ball is dead, you need to also then do the signal again to signal it to the scorers. Over, Tom.
Thanks very much, Abdullah. Happy with that, Boitumelo?
Yes, thank you. I'm here. I'm happy.
Great. Right, question from Snow Bunny for you, Abdullah. What will happen if the umpire is the one who is not feeling well during the game? So if an umpire becomes injured or ill, what happens?
So, Snow Bunny, the law allows for an umpire to be changed if the umpire became injured or ill, and it sometimes happen. I mean, we umpires, we are human. We do get injured or ill. So the law allows for that umpire to be replaced by another umpire, and then according to the law, this replacement umpire will then only stand at the striker's end, unless both captains agree that this new umpire can have full power in this game and can then stand at the bowler's end as well. But if there's no agreement, then the new umpire or the replacement umpire only to stand at the striker's end. But to answer your question, yes, we can bring in a replacement umpire if an umpire is not feeling well. Over, Tom.
Thanks, Dula. And next question comes from Ntobeko. And next week we will be dealing with all the modes of dismissals laws. One of them is LBW, leg before wicket. Ntobeko's question, in a match situation, is it best as an umpire to give LBWs for under 10 matches and under 11 matches, or should we not give LBWs out for under 10 and under 11 matches? Abdullah, I'm not sure when was the last time you umpired a under 10 or under 11 match. How did you handle the LBW appeals?
Yeah. Our Ntobeko, Yes, I was a bit lenient back in the day, not to give LBs, but we also need to take into account, if you're not going to give LBs, you're depriving the bowler from a wicket. And also, the kids are growing up. They getting used to the laws and playing the game. And LBW is one of the modes of the dismissals. So yeah, they need to realize that they need to use the bat, to hit the ball. And so yeah, tough one. Yes, I was. If I can think back, was a bit lenient, but I still gave it because if you're not going to give any LBWs in under 10, 11, or 12 games, yeah, then the poor bowlers, you're depriving them from wickets, and yeah, the batters are um, not going to learn to use their bat to play at the ball if there's no LBs in the game. Over, Tom.
Great. Thanks, Dula. Last question in the chat box comes from Shakira. What happens if the umpire does not make it on time for the second innings of the match? Meaning when it's the lunch break, then the umpire leaves to go buy a Streetwise 2 and then doesn't come back in time. Is the game put on hold? What happens, Abdullah? Are there consequences against this umpire?
Sakira, definitely consequences. That the umpires association do have a code of conduct in place, and that umpire will definitely have to appear before a disciplinary committee for just disappearing. Unless there was a valid reason why the umpire needs to disappear, but the umpire needs to then come and explain to the disciplinary committee, that reason, and if they feel is valid, they probably won't take any action, but it's depending on them. But if it's no valid reason, they will definitely take action against that umpire. So what happens to with the game? The game needs to continue. Yes, we now an umpire short, but what will now happen is we will the official umpire that's left. We will now go to both that umpire will go to both captains, informing the captains that my colleague is not here anymore, but the game needs to continue. So what we're going to do is we need two umpires on the field. We will then, whoever's batting at the time, that the batting side needs to send out a strikers in umpire. And yes, it will be one of the players. That strikers in umpire, that player will only stand at strikers in. The batting, the official umpire will then do bowlers in to bowlers in. When that innings is done, the strikers in when the other side goes into bat, they then will get their turn to provide a strikers in umpire from one of the players. Over, Tom.
Thank you, Abdullah, and thank you to all the candidates for putting questions into the chat box. Anwar asks, is a stumping out on a free hit? Anwar, the laws of cricket do not include the playing condition of a free hit, but to answer your question, a free hit is treated in the same way as a no ball. And Abdullah did mention to us that there are only three ways that a batter can be out of a no ball. It is hit the ball twice, it is obstructing the field, and it is run out. So the stumping is not one of the modes of dismissals of a no ball, and so it is also not one of the modes of dismissal that a batter can be out of a free hit. We will deal with stumpings in next week's lecture, which will cover all the modes of dismissal. I don't see any more questions or comments in the chat box. I don't see any more hands in the meeting room. So I'm going to now ask all of you to switch on your cameras if you can, unmute your microphone, and together we're going to say goodbye by shouting the name of our hub for everybody to see and hear where we're from. And the loudest hub will get a big applause from myself and Abdullah. So I am signing off from St. Helena.
Actonville siya. Musa by Western Cape.
Kukuletu Hub.
I am Celia from Gauteng.
Okay.
Hello from the
Zizi Pozote, where is your hub? There's a lot of you there. Make some noise. Kailicha's in the house. Hello, Kailicha. Okay, everybody, thank you for attending. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.